Good evening. Tonight we begin with the latest election results in the Washington primary in several key races. Thank you for joining us. I'm Christine Pitawanich.
And I'm David Molko. Let's start in the race for governor, where the Associated Press says longtime Attorney General Bob Ferguson, a Democrat, will face off against former Congressman and King County Sheriff Dave Reichert, a Republican, in November. A reminder, Washington is a top two primary state, so the top two finishers in every race, regardless of party, move forward. For the U.S. Senate seat, the AP calling for Democrat Maria Cantwell, who has held that seat since the year 2000, and GOP challenger Raul Garcia, an emergency room doctor in Yakima. They will face off in November. And a really quick, interesting note here. In Washington, a Republican has not won a U.S. Senate seat since 1994. We will see. And the race for Congressional District 3 in Southwest Washington, well, it's looking like a rematch. The AP calling it for incumbent Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez, saying she will face off against Republican Joe Kent. The Skamania County Democrat beat Kent, a former Green Beret, by about 2,600 votes in the general election in 2022. Really narrow there, flipping a district held by Republicans for more than a decade from red to blue. All right, let's begin with Alma McCarty live in Vancouver on what could be one of the most closely watched races in the country this fall. Alma?
Yeah, David, Christine, both these candidates expected for a rematch in November, and both Kent and Gluesenkamp-Perez acknowledged that they've got a lot of work to do in the next 90 days. Take a listen.
My hope is that by staying focused on being useful to my community, I have built a bridge that will make things easier, but you don't take anything for granted.
Marie is a tough opponent. I'm going to need every vote I can get, and I'm going to work very, very hard. We've already got a great start. We've got a unified Republican Party. I look forward to getting into the general election, talking with moderates, talking with undecided voters.
Now, it appeared ahead of the primary, both had moved toward the middle in terms of messaging and away from political extremes in their campaigns for Congress, hoping to win over independents and voters of the opposite party. Now, Gluesenkamp-Perez, who edged out Kent last time, tells me her values have been consistent. She's spent the last year and a half fighting to elevate the voices in Southwest Washington with her bipartisan voting record. She says she's not a cheerleader for any political party.
People are also just really tired of how weird politics has gotten. They're really tired of the extremism and just this chatter that never reflects the things that are hitting us. It feels like we're just in the background sometimes, and that's wrong. So it's been fun to fight to right the ship.
And meanwhile, Joe Kent says his opponent was able to, quote, disguise herself as Republican light last time, but believes he'll have more luck with voters this time around, hitting on more mainstream talking points like inflation and immigration.
There's a huge difference between rhetoric and records. So Marie Perez will say bipartisan, she will say moderate, and then she will vote with the Democrats every single time. She votes with them on all of the procedural votes. She has voted for all of the major issues that are destroying the country.
Now, it is sure to be a race to watch, as David has mentioned, all eyeballs here in Southwest Washington. The district, as you'd mentioned, flipped blue in 2022 after Republicans had held onto it for more than a decade. David, Christine, back to you.
Yeah, thank you for your reporting up there in Southwest Washington, Alma. Well, we heard tonight from the top two candidates in the race for governor.
Democrat Bob Ferguson is leading so far, again, with 46% of the vote. Republican Dave Reichert, about 28%. The two rose to the top of a list of 28 candidates vying for the seat. Ferguson, first elected state attorney general in 2012. Reichert served in Congress for 14 years and also as King County sheriff. They're both candidates rallying their supporters in the Seattle area tonight.
Good evening, everybody. Are you fired up? I'm the real Bob Ferguson. Thanks to you, our grassroots coalition just won the Democratic primary to be the next governor of Washington State. We did it by being the only campaign with a coalition of workers, firefighters, tribes, small business owners, farm workers, nurses, educators, and students.
You all here tonight, and those listening, can make me the first elected Republican governor in 40 years. You know, I was a police officer, and they risked their lives every day across this state. They need our support. Bob Ferguson is not going to give them the support they need.
Well, you heard it there. No Republican has won the Washington governor's race since John Spellman in 1980.
For full results on the Washington primary election, go to KGW.com. There you'll be able to look up results from our local counties as well as other statewide races.
Well, November, here we come. Let's widen out now and talk about the presidential race where VP Kamala Harris appeared with her brand new running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Walz is a former public school teacher who served 6 terms in Congress, then won the governorship in 2018. He's known for policy changes across the North Star state that include protecting access to abortion and aid to families. Harris and Walz appearing at a rally in Philadelphia just hours after the VP announced her pick.
Welcome the next Vice President of the United States, Tim Walz.
My mom and dad taught us, show generosity towards your neighbors and work for a common good. I took it to Congress and to the state capitol, and now Vice President Harris and I are running to take those very values to the White House.
Well, Walz has faced some criticism for his handling of protests in 2020 following the death of George Floyd. The Trump campaign responded to the pick by describing Walz as a far-left liberal.
Now to a new wildfire in Washington's Skamania County. Photos taken as far as Hood River show smoke from the Williams Mine fire. So far, it has charred at least 2,700 acres. The lightning-caused fire started last night and is burning in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest west of Mount Adams. Tonight, areas north and east of Trout Lake are under a Level 1 Be Ready evacuation notice. Forest Service staff have also evacuated trails in the area. We'll keep you updated as we learn more. In a developing story tonight, deputies in Washington County arrested a suspected child sex predator after they say police across the country found him online.
Catherine Cook looks into how local detectives finally got him in handcuffs.
Some of these sexual predators are willing to travel.
That conclusion is something Washington County Sheriff's Deputy David Huey says triggered a big red flag 2,600 miles away. Last month, Huey says a detective with the Civil Police Department in North Carolina stumbled across this guy online, 68-year-old John Scott Taylor. The detectives say Taylor was trying to lure minors. They reached out to the Washington County Sheriff's Office when they found out he lived here.
But when they turned us on to the investigation, our detectives posed as a 13-year-old juvenile and started to engage with this person in conversation, which turned into a sexual connotation. And so absolutely inappropriate, definitely crossed the line.
According to court documents, Taylor made plans to meet the decoy on August 2nd at a church in Beaverton. That's where deputies arrested him. Taylor faces charges of luring a minor and online sexual corruption of a child. Deputies think there could be more victims connected to Taylor. It's why they're sharing his mugshot. They hope any possible victims find the courage to come forward and report him.
Really what's important to us is that we want to protect the kids.
Investigators say to help protect children from online predators, it is critical to stay connected. Be aware of the content that's on your child's devices and pay attention to what they're searching for. As for Taylor, he was in court this week and pleaded not guilty to both charges. Back to you.
Yeah, so important to keep tabs on the kids. Thank you, Catherine. Now to an update on a KGW investigation. A Portland lawyer responsible for dozens of lawsuits that accused small businesses of violating the Americans with Disabilities Act is now being sued by a former client for malpractice.
Our Kyle Lebosche's been on this for months. As we reported, record show lawyer Jessica Mulligan accused convenience stores, restaurants, and gas stations of violating some technical aspects of a federal law that protects the rights of people living with disabilities. In many cases, she sent a demand letter to the businesses threatening to sue unless they made necessary repairs and wrote her a check for attorney's fees. The former client telling KGW he now wants nothing to do with Mulligan or the lawsuits filed on his behalf.
We had all the negotiations, all of the plea deals, all of the demand letter in my name without my knowledge.
Oh, and KGW tried to speak with Mulligan outside the federal courthouse last week. She declined. Kyle Lebosche's working on an in-depth follow-up. We'll have that for you sometime next week.
And in the hot seat for 10 hours today, the National Transportation Safety Board questioned Boeing on the door plug blowout over Portland back in January. You may remember the Alaska Airlines flight. The blowout, around 16,000 feet up, caused a gaping hole in the side of a relatively new 737 MAX 9 plane. Boeing's senior officials said a contracted crew was brought in to fix damaged rivets near the door plug, which Boeing said workers had removed and reinstalled. But evidence later showed the retaining bolts were not reinstalled. The head of the NTSB said today's hearing failed to get to the heart of the investigation.
This isn't a PR campaign for Boeing. What we want to know is what happened.
So Boeing did say it is redesigning the door plug to make it more fail-safe. The hearing continues again tomorrow.
New tonight, a bit of a bumpy landing for a Horizon Air flight that made an emergency touchdown Monday at PDX. Check this out, the nose gear there, right? Video showing it wobbling. The Embraer 175 was headed from Seattle to Redmond when the airline says the crew experienced an issue with the hydraulic system on board. A passenger tells us landing was very loud and bumpy, but there were no reports of injuries. Passengers boarded another aircraft and arrived in Redmond safe about 2 hours late. Glad to hear that. Straight ahead on KGW News at 11, the shocking upset on the purple track in Paris pulled off by an Oregon duck.
And a sheriff's deputy's awe-inspiring journey as he makes his way back on duty.
And we had one of our rare summer days where we did not hit 80 degrees, but we're headed for the 90s, so we're going to call Thursday a weather impact alert day. We'll let you know how hot it's going to get. And then there's the smoke in the sky. There's a whole lot more where this is coming from.